All right, everyone. Well, hi, I'm Matt Olin, the co-founder of Charlotte is Creative. And of course, Charlotte is Creative is very happy to be the administrative partner with the City of Charlotte on this round of the Opportunity Fund. And we're really glad that you're joining us for this information session. And this particular information session, as you know, is intended to focus on priorities 1 and 8. I think we made abundantly clear in the first info session that a big part of the Opportunity Fund is making sure that your idea, your project, your initiative aligns with a priority and a strategy in the city's arts and culture plan. And so we want to make sure that we're taking the time to really shine a really bright light on these different priorities and strategies so that we all emerge with a great understanding of them and how our idea aligns with one of them. So that is going to be the focus of the next 55 minutes or so here is priorities 1 and 8. And we will have a session coming up next week that will focus on the other applicable eligible priorities from the plan. We do ask you to keep yourselves on mute so that we can have nice, clear audio. And if you have questions that come up, please drop them in the chat. We'll get to as many of those as possible. And we have this living, breathing, growing FAQ document that will be going live, I think, later today. And we'll be sure to drop some of these questions into that FAQ document as well. And we'll share the link to that as well. So before I hand things off to the City of Charlotte's Arts and Culture Officer, Priya Sarkar, those of you that know us, you know that we always like to start each community engagement, no matter how roll up our sleeves, get down to business the gathering happens to be, like this one is. We always want to start with a moment of artistic inspiration. It's to keep us grounded while at the same time keeping us elevated and keeping us all moving in the right direction together. So today, we have Charlotte-based creative visionary Frank Expression doing us the honor at this particular gathering. Frank Expression, if you don't know this amazing guy yet, he is a multi-talented artist and event curator. He specializes in this awesome combination of spoken word poetry and trumpet. And he really focuses his artistry on the African-American experience, on love, and on mental health. He also happens to be a member of Charlotte is Creative's current Creative Entrepreneurs Initiative cohort. We love this guy and really grateful that he's going to take a moment to get us off on the right foot. So Frank, handing it off to you for a moment here.
Thank you so much. How you doing? I'm Frank Expression. You can follow me at Frank_Expression. That's Frank_Expression. Thank you, Charlotte's Creative, with this amazing opportunity. Folks, here's the story about an unknown poet. They wrote poems, but were afraid to show it. In their pockets sat sonnets and haikus. It'd be a shame if this person was you. Meanwhile, on the scene, there was a need to be seen. Confident artists were portrayed as mean, but same artists were scared but aware of self. Same art, different wealth. See yourself as more than just a story. You're an experience, no matter how corny. Leave your lefts, right your wrongs, empty your queue. An unknown poet is a person just like you. So write more, writes now. And peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank Expression. We're huge fans. What can we say? We're huge fans.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate it.
And with that, let's turn it over to Priya Sarkar, the Arts and Culture Officer of the City of Charlotte. Priya, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Frank. How awesome! I love that. I'll just say it so happens. Last night I was typing up some poems that I had written in a notebook from as far back as 7 years ago. So what a coincidence that you have inspired us this morning or this afternoon to write more. So thank you all for taking time today to join us to learn more about the Opportunity Fund grant cycle and about the the Charlotte Arts and Culture Plan. We are excited about this chance for the Infusion Fund to provide support for your projects, programs, and initiatives. And so this, for us is also a chance for folks to really get to know the Charlotte Arts and Culture Plan. Some of you are already familiar with it. Others of you may not be so familiar with it. Many of you participated in shaping this plan, and we thank you so much for that. And so now what we're doing is, as a community, coming together to put this plan into action. And so just want to encourage you, if you didn't have a chance to tune in live yesterday or 2 days ago, to check out the recording of the general info session that Matt referenced in his opening remarks. Each one of these virtual sessions we are recording, and we'll put the recording up afterward, so you can go back to it, check it out. And also want to really thank my colleagues at the city, Julia Martin, our colleagues on the comms team, and of course the Charlotte is Creative team, who are our partners in this cycle for the Opportunity Fund grants. They're all doing an amazing job. And so as Matt said, today we're going to focus on 2 of the priorities. On Monday, we'll focus on 3 of the other priorities. So there are 8 priorities in the plan. Not going to go over them now. They are online in multiple places, and we do talk about them briefly in the opening info session from the other day. But what we would like to do is I'm going to share my screen and just walk through the 2 priorities we're focusing on today, and specifically the strategies and even some of the actions in the plan that might be helpful to you as you're thinking about what you might want to apply for the Opportunity Fund grants. Whether you've got a project in mind, maybe you've got a couple of potential projects in mind that you might want to apply for, or maybe you just want to know more and then decide if there's something you've got coming up that is a fit. Our goal is to help you get to yes for funding in a way that aligns with the Arts and Culture Plan, because of course, in terms of the work of the community, of all the members of the Arts and Culture Advisory Board, the 40-member steering group, the 70-member task force that wrote this plan together, we're all looking at how we can collaborate to bring this plan to life. So please do rely on us if you have questions to figure out if you have something that would be a good fit and would be eligible. That's really what this LOI phase is about. So with that, I'm going to ask you to bear with me briefly while I share my screen. Meanwhile, Matt, Tim, Sethu, if I've forgotten something, chime in while I share my screen.
I think you got it covered, Priya.
All right. Can anyone tell I've been eating, sleeping, and breathing this plan for 2 years?
Occupational hazard.
All right, right. Okay, so can folks see what looks like a PDF with green and white?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, do I need to make it bigger? Because I can.
A little bigger would
Yes.
be great.
A little bigger. Okay. Is that better?
That
Should I
is
go
better.
bigger? Okay. Okay. So if this looks familiar to you, it's because I'm literally just sharing chapter 5 of the full Arts and Culture Plan, which has been posted online since last fall. Don't worry about most of these columns. They are not important. Really just want to walk through the priority at the top. I'll talk about the strategy, and we're going to and I'll just share some examples of things that come from the leftmost column that say action/cost. You don't even have to worry about the cost, really just the actions. So this is priority 1 of the, sorry, and I think Matt, you said this, but I'll just say it again. If you have questions that are coming up as I'm walking through this, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will do our best to get to them toward the end of this hour that we are together. And also, anything we don't get to, or even including the ones we do get to, they're being added to an ongoing FAQ that'll be posted later today. So, So priority one is, and you can hopefully see it here at the top in bold, ensure sustainable and reliable funding for arts and culture in Charlotte-Mecklenburg through public-private planning, collaboration, and commitment. What does that mean? It really just means it's going to take all of us, people, to make for a successful, thriving arts and culture sector and community in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Now, what we're focusing on for the projects, programs, or initiatives that might be funded through this Opportunity Fund grant cycle are actually strategies 3 and 4. So if you've seen the full plan, the reason we're not including strategies 1 and 2 is because those really are dependent on our public sector entities. So that's like the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, maybe other, public sector organizations, funding arts and culture, finding sustainable sources. So that's in the works. It's just sort of out of the hands of other individuals, artists, folks in the community, right? So obviously the public sector entities need to work on that. Strategy 2 in this priority is about the private sector. It's about what corporations are doing, other private foundations, folks like that. And again, that's not really that's not about that. Those wouldn't be things that get a grant from this, right? That's really about them putting money into the system. So that's why those 2 strategies are not part of this grant cycle. What we've got here is strategies 3 and 4 are things that could potentially be eligible for a grant. So, for example, strategy 3, you can see it up here in the italics, is build organizational development capabilities. So, some examples of what that could look like that are in the plan are this leftmost column that says action. So for example, 1, prioritize the hire. I'm just going to talk through these actions and we'll talk about what might be eligible, okay? So 1, prioritize the hiring and training of development staff at organizations for support. So that's obviously a thing that could assist with building development capabilities. Number 2, create technical assistance programs for organizations. So certainly that's something that could help organizations to bolster their capacity to raise money for ones who are raising money. And I say organizations, it could be individuals too, individual artists and creatives. Also, I just want to note, the fact that these are in this plan doesn't mean that some of these things aren't already happening in our community. It's not like this entire plan is like we're starting from scratch and no one's doing anything. It's not at all that. This is just including the things that as a community, as a steering group and task force rose to the top as the most important things to focus on over the next 10 years that could help. So, and some of it is new things that aren't happening and other things are maybe already going on, but we feel like we want to amplify those activities. Number 3 on here is assess, develop, launch, and complete capital and endowment campaigns, providing professional expertise to organizations regarding campaign feasibility and strategy. So that's like a much bigger dollar kind of thing. If for those of you who might be familiar with the capital campaign, that's usually big dollar activity. There's a lot of sort of things that go into that, like assessing feasibility of a campaign. So that is the kind of thing where I will just go ahead and say it's unlikely that you might have a project that would be a fit for this grant, which is up to $40,000 to go into that, just because it's a much bigger ticket item, as you can see from the many dollar signs underneath. But in any case, that is what that activity is about. Number 4, identify funds from new funding sources to support development staff at organizations. So again, that's something that almost has a bit more to do with looking at where, looking for more sources of funding or encouraging funders to to sort of make available support that could help organizations or groups kind of build their in-house development capacity, fundraising capacity. So these are some examples of what could be included in, what's in the plan of what would help build organizational development capabilities. That doesn't mean this is an exhaustive list of all the ways, all the types of things that could happen to build an organization's development capabilities. One thing I will say is that I encourage everyone to keep in mind is that the Opportunity Fund grants, they are for specific projects, programs, and initiatives that are new, or maybe it's an expansion of something you're doing. Maybe you've been doing something and it's like, we want to try this new element, so we need to get the new element funded. So it could be that. But it's not designed to support operations of an organization. And I do think that, just to be frank, this particular strategy around development, it could be a little bit of a blurry line of, whether that would be veering into operations. If you have a question, and I know we've recently gotten some email questions around this, so we will do our best to get back to you quickly on those. I think you may find that it's best to have sort of a one-on-one correspondence or a conversation to help, so that we can help you. We can talk through it together to understand what you're seeking to do and figure out if it seems like it's a bit too much into operations to really fit this, or if it does seem like a specific initiative. I think one thing I do really want to share is something that the Arts and Culture Advisory Board, which of course makes the ultimate determinations of the awards, has always been thinking about, especially with these projects, is the original vision of the Opportunity Fund grants really was to help to, kind of fill gaps in the types of funding that's available, and really jumpstart things that are new opportunities, new ideas, things that you're maybe you've been wanting to try and experiment with or innovate with, but haven't had the opportunity, or maybe the existing sort of resources available to us in our community just haven't been a fit for whatever reason. And so, again, the goal, it has not been to support ongoing operations of an organization or group, things that are part of your day-to-day sort of existing business, or your everyday programming, kind of your everyday bread and butter ongoing programming. It's not to do that, especially because, again, as you may be aware, this is part of the Infusion Fund. The Infusion Fund ends June 30th, 2024. And because this particular structure has been a temporary structure, the board has, not wanted to kind of start getting into the mode of funding operations and in a way through this Opportunity Fund that kind of creates a sort of reliance on a mechanism that may or may not exist after June 30th, 2024. And so again, the idea is if we can help you catalyze something that then you can find other ways to do in the future, whether that's earn revenue or raise other money or whatever. Maybe there's something you wanted to try. This would be a proof of concept. We can help you get that going for the first time. That's kind of more what this initiative is intended to do. So I hope that's helpful. And I'm going to go ahead and move on for the sake of time, because also priority 8 is long. So we're going to go to the next strategy, the second part of priority 1. And this is related. So again, we're still in the piece about ensuring sustainable and reliable funding. But this is about building the capacity of organizations and artists and creatives to develop sustainable revenue models appropriate to their respective operating models. So nonprofit, for-profit, individual. You don't have to worry about seeing priority 2. That's not part of the grant eligibility. What this means is, when I said it's going to take all of us, it's going to be on everybody to make this happen. That also is referring to the idea that for those of us in the creative sector, sorry if you're hearing background noise, sometimes it can be a challenge just figuring out what is the right operational model for what we want to do. And maybe we're in a model that might not be the best fit for what we want to do. So I'll just give an example. A lot of times in my work over the years, a group will say to me, hey, we are excited because we are getting our 501c3. We haven't gotten it yet, but we almost have it. And I've often said, ooh, hold up, are you sure? Are you sure you need to be a 501c3 for what you want to do? Because obviously there are pros and cons. There's benefits to doing that, to becoming a nonprofit, but it may not be the best fit for the thing that's your mission or the way that you want to do your work. And so this is partly around just helping folks to really identify the right fit for them. And so anyway, let's get into the actions because it's also on us as creatives and organizations and groups to determine the best model that will allow us to be sustainable. So, for example, some of these are, number one, identify business incubators that have capacity and expertise to develop curriculum for small arts organizations and individual artists. Some of these exist. Some of you, like Frank, are involved in one right now. So again, some of these programs exist in our community, but that doesn't mean that those have to be the only ones, or maybe there's elements that can enhance the resources that are existing. I also know that the Charlotte Business Alliance, has a program that some creative colleagues have gone through. So again, there might be programs, but there could be other types of things too. Secure grant funds and sponsorships for participants of capacity building programs. This is a little, so here, this is really about supporting capacity building programs. Or providing them and creating them. And when I say capacity building, it might be, certain kinds of skills. How do you, get better at raising money, or how do you get better at, earn revenue? Or maybe it's other technical skills that will help you. 3, explore opportunities for operational efficiencies, such as shared administrative services model. So again, this is kind of thinking about any kind of thing that might make operations more efficient for you or for a group of folks. Again, this is an example you see here where it's referencing a shared administrative services model. That's kind of means like sometimes folks will get together and do they'll share their back of house or back office kind of functions. So that doesn't mean that's the only way that someone could be more, there could be more efficiency, but that was the example included in the plan. 4, increased earned revenue by organizations, artists, and creatives. That's kind of straightforward. So it's more about what are some of those ways that earned revenue could be increased. And then 5, develop a cohort of organizations to share best practices around increasing and sustaining earned revenue. I think that's probably fairly straightforward as well. And, it might be, I think with that, it probably depends, whoever is going to develop that cohort, hopefully it would make sense for that organization to kind of be one that is working in that realm. And then number 6, encourage and support recipients of grants to dedicate a portion of their funds to marketing and communicating their activities. This is something that I'm not sure is necessarily that much, of a fit for a grant proposal for the Opportunity Fund, but I am open to being proven wrong. So if you have something where you think it fits really well, it's that type of thing, that's fine. Again, in the full proposal, you don't necessarily have to call out a particular activity if you go to the full proposal stage, but the reason I'm walking through this is, again, to just help everyone reach a more familiarity and understanding of the plan, but also give you some ideas about what are the types of things that might be a fit And again, this is not an exhaustive list of the types of actions that could advance strategy 4 of priority 1, but they're examples. What we would be asking you is, which priority and strategy does your project or program primarily, align with, and how? And then also, it's not that your project or program or initiative only has to align with one. There's just one that we want you to indicate as the primary fit, and then there'll be a way for you to indicate if there are some other potential areas of fit as well. I must admit, and I'm going to ask the Charlotte's creative team too here, I don't recall if that's in the LOI phase or if that's more in the full proposal phase. Does anyone know? Want to correct me?
Sure. Hey, Priya, it's Seithu just chiming in. We do have it in the LOI phase where you do select a primary priority and strategy that best aligns. So that question is in the LOI form.
Great. And then is there a space there in the full proposal, I think, where if there's more alignment with other strategies and priorities, folks can indicate that
I
too?
think you'll have that opportunity to expound on that in the full proposal.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So just keeping an eye on the time. I know I'm kind of moving through these quickly, but I want to make sure we've got question and answer time. I'm going to go ahead and scroll to priority 8 because it is a lengthier priority. So, okay. And what I might do, because priority 8 is so lengthy, is just call out certain activities within these strategies. So, priority 8, expand arts education, early childhood to lifelong learners, meaning for early childhood to lifelong learners, experiences for greater access and exposure to arts and culture, enhancing quality of life, workforce development, and retention and cultivation of future artists and supporters. So, as I sometimes say, while this is arts education, it really includes education, exposure, experiences for folks that are, to put it inelegantly, this is cradle to grave, really over the span of a person's life, wanting to make sure that there are these arts education experiences, and that also includes professional development, career pathways, things like that. But this can be, amateur, from layperson, amateur to professional, all of those ways. Strategy 1, articulate and advocate for the value of arts education across all demographic sectors, i.e. all ages, races, gender, ethnicities, geographic locations, etc. So again, here, this is, of course, about advocating for arts education. So some of these things may or may not relate, but I'll just buzz through them in terms of the actions, the types of actions. Identify different audiences. Won't read the audiences to you. Define arts education, outcomes, skills, etc., and articulate the many benefits of arts education. Develop a marketing campaign or public information campaigns, capitalizing on and amplifying existing knowledge, efforts, and data. Identify platforms for messaging, create messages and materials for all platforms, print and digital. Identify and rally messengers, such as advocates who can help communicate, place and promote messages, and develop local assessments and pools and impacts. So some of these are, I would say, you can see that this strategy has been really laid out as a series of activities that evolve. That said, even if there were to be a kind of coordinated, sector-wide effort along these lines, I don't think that means that if you as an organization are, or as an individual, are involved in arts education, if that's your field, that, there might not be some kind of project or thing that aligns with this that you couldn't apply for an opportunity fund grant. It really depends on what it is that you're doing. And again, we'll get into this when we kind of talk more in the future about having a strong proposal, and some of these tips are in our initial presentation. But part of the feasibility and the way that our review panels would assess feasibility in the full proposal stage is really also looking at, the suitability of the team or the organization or the individual who's doing the project to the goal of the project. So again, in this realm, it's probably more about what are you proposing, and, kind of, are you the right, organization to do the thing that you're proposing in terms of fit. You can see some more things here about arts education coordinator role being established and recommending more funding for arts education. Some of these are much more kind of like advocacy focused, and there might be some organizations that are very well suited to this and kind of already doing this work. And then for other folks, it just probably doesn't make sense to apply with a project in that realm. Moving on. Strategy 2, strengthen arts ed in all pre-K through 12 schools, public, private, and charter schools. So, with the caveat that certainly, a lot of what happens in schools is not dependent on folks who are necessarily on this call, but also there are folks who are involved in, providing arts ed and partnering with schools on things. Here are some of, there might be things that you have planned that could fit here, or you might have an idea that stems from this. So again, some of these are a little bit out of our hands, that has meaning out of our hands in terms of the opportunity fund grant. It has more to do with coordinating and working with partners that work in these areas. So that's, for example, what number 1 is: ensure arts instruction in all 5 disciplines in all schools. That is not happening through an opportunity fund grant. That is that's a much bigger kind of high level sort of project, but we can always advocate for it. Number 2, form, train, and provide funding to employ a robust and diverse core of full-time arts educators and teaching artists. That's 2 is something that I'm going to say I think is probably not likely to be a good fit for an opportunity fund grant, because again, with these grants being up to $40,000, even though that's a healthy amount for a 1-year project, it's not necessarily going to be enough to support that particular activity. Number 3, provide field trips to arts and cultural experiences for students in all grades. Number 4, provide adequate materials, supplies for classrooms and projects, including technology, materials, supplies, etc. There's a lot of this that has to do with our school systems, and so again, I don't want to say that there might not be a project that you have in mind that couldn't dovetail with this, but I just also want to be transparent about kind of the lens that I think the task force that developed this was coming from. Is a lot of this is a little bit more kind of system-wide and systemic. Number 8, strategy 3, excuse me. Increase support for arts teachers and teaching artists through increased funding, leveraging community partnerships and professional development opportunities. So, number 1 is organize professional development and create renewal opportunities for arts teachers and teaching artists. Number 2, create unique fund for arts educators to apply for technical assistance grants and for materials and individual professional development to decrease out-of-pocket expenses. Number 3, build greater connections between arts educators, local artists, and organizations to create more educational opportunities, potentially including subsidized arts educator discounts to local arts events, arts ed, and an arts ed coordinator that was referenced in an earlier strategy that we're not being. I think the the opportunity fund grant is not something that's really aligned with the arts education coordinator a bit, because that is really much more of a systemic level activity. But that said, these greater connections among arts educators and artists and organizations for educational opportunities, that I could see being something that someone might have some ideas around, that potentially, depending on the project, could be eligible for an opportunity fund grant. And then collaborate with corporate funders to invest in arts education, addressing future innovation. Again, that's not really a grant funded activity, but that's more about ways that we can work with our corporate sector to support arts education. Priority 8, strategy 4, fortify and expand educational programming from local arts organization. So 1, utilize data from arts education impact research and determine what gaps exist. This goes back to some of the systemic kind of approach to strengthening arts education. Number 2, fund development of new programs or provide subsidies for expansions of existing programs. So you can see here some examples like curriculum-based programs, extracurricular arts programs for children and teens, adult education initiatives that are innovative, and arts and tech programs. I think this action, in that list, there's probably some things that could be a fit for an opportunity fund grant, depending on what you want to do. Number 3, again, is about this proposed role of arts education coordinator. And again, that's intended by the task force for the plan to be a system-wide kind of role that's being proposed. So I'm going to bypass that because it's not really something for the opportunity fund grants. Strategy 5. How many more strategies do we have? Oh, good. Okay, last one. Good. We want to make sure we're closing in on plenty of time for Q&A. Strategy 5, create pathways for people to become professional artists, entrepreneurs, and business owners within the creative sectors. Again, this is an area where there are programs happening, and certainly could be opportunities to amplify what we've got. So number 1 is something not really likely to be a fit for an opportunity fund grant. It's really about degree programs in higher ed. So we could certainly advocate for that and work with partners, but unlikely to be something that fits with a $40,000 one-year grant. Number 2, create more paid internships and apprenticeships for students and aspiring artists in different disciplines. That I could see being an potential fit. Number 3, provide incentives to arts entities for increased memberships and hiring artists who belong to professional unions that guarantee baseline wages and healthcare. I'll be honest, this one, I'm not sure if it's a fit. And I think it would depend on what you had in mind. If there was something you thought aligned best, kind of fell into this realm, we could talk about it. But that is just one of the ways that our task force felt like we could enhance those creative pathways. And then number 4, design and implement more classes through CPCC's Small Business Center. And again, this was just a specific opportunity that the task force saw. We did have, of course, arts educators who were on this task force and co-chairing the task force and writing these different things. So again, just want to underscore, I know I've said this before, but I'll say it again. These were specific recommendations from the task force and steering group, but they're not exhaustive. If you may have another way that another thing you're wanting to do that is a really great alignment with creating pathways for people to become professional artists, entrepreneurs, and business owners within the creative sectors. So